Okay guys, your circulatory system is the topic of conversation for today. So your circulatory system is the system that essentially transports all the substances your body needs to all the different cells. This is really important, right? Because we need to get things to our cells in our fingers and our toes and our arms and wherever, like our brain. This needs to get those nutrients that we get from our food, the vitamins, the minerals, the glucose, all those things, they need to get to the different cells, water. And so how do they do that? Well, God created your body with your circulatory system. So if you want to write this down, your circulatory system it's the system that moves substances around your body via your blood, okay? You know blood is everywhere in your body, right? It's in your toes, it's in your fingers. If you cut something anywhere, you are going to bleed. That's because everywhere in your body, you need to have these different things in order for your cells to be alive and functioning, okay? So this is a really important part of your homeostasis because your circulatory system knows how to keep things in balance, okay? So how does it work? Well, your heart is a big muscle. It's one giant muscle, okay? I've got my little heart here that we're gonna be talking with, but essentially it beats or contracts about 70 times per minute on average. Now you can make your heart work faster, and we do that when we work out, right? Our heart rate gets up. And so then when that happens, your heart is pumping more blood because your cells need more oxygen and they need to get rid of more carbon dioxide like we talked about the other day, okay? Your heart is made up of involuntary cardiac muscle. Why is this not working? There we go. Involuntary cardiac muscle. What does involuntary mean? Well, involuntary means I don't have to think about it. This muscle works on its own without me thinking it through, okay? And it's cardiac muscle, which means it's muscle pertaining to your heart, okay? So how does it work? Your heart, if you were to look on the inside of it, it would look a little bit, hold on, why are we not clicking? Okay, that's not what we wanted. Just give me one sec, guys. Sorry about that. All right, so blood enters through the heart via your arteries and your veins, okay? So I feel like we missed something from the last page. Hold on, we're gonna backtrack just a second. I'm not gonna go back because I don't wanna have more issues. But it says blood enters your heart through two upper atrium, okay? These here, if your heart is actually divided into kind of 4 sections. The 2 top ones are called your atrium. The 2 bottom ones are called your ventricles. Now blood can enter through this one or this one, depending on where it's coming from, okay? So you'll notice that it's got these tubes attached to it, okay? These different tubes, this one is a vein, it's called the vena cava, okay? Superior means that it's on top, inferior means that it's below. So this is your superior vena cava, which is a vein, and your inferior vena cava. And then this one right here, this kind of tube-shaped one with the 3 prongs coming out, that's your aorta. That is an artery, okay? So veins, blood travels to your heart through veins and arteries, okay? Capillaries connect the arteries to the veins. So I'm gonna explain that in just a second. And valves allow blood to only flow in one direction, okay? So I want to kind of back up for a second and talk about the arteries and the veins. The veins bring deoxygenated, in other words, blood with carbon dioxide in it, into the heart. Your artery takes the oxygenated blood and sends it out of your heart to the rest of your body. Okay, so how does that work? Because we know that the lungs are involved in this whole carbon and oxygen exchange. And that's what you're gonna find out. You're gonna find out how the blood coming in somehow gets transformed to have oxygen and then can go out and leave your body, okay? So think of your veins as taking blood to your heart and your arteries as taking blood away from your heart. Now, where they connect, those are the capillaries, okay? And we'll talk about valves in a minute here as well. All right, next up. Let's talk about what's actually in your blood, and then we'll talk about how it actually travels throughout. So you'll see in your notes there's that little test tube that shows you your blood, okay? About 45% of your blood is red blood cells. These contain large amounts of hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is what carries the oxygen. So the oxygen molecule is attached to this. This is where your iron is, okay? They're produced in the bone marrow. We already learned that when we talked about the bones, okay? White blood cells, on the other hand, they help us to deal with viruses and bacteria that invade the body. We're going to talk about them more when we get to the immune system and when we talk about the lymphatic system, okay? But you'll notice they're just a tiny, tiny percentage of your blood. About 1% of your blood is white blood cells and platelets, okay? Platelets are what help your blood to clot, okay? Hold on, let's get to the platelets, okay? They form clots when a blood vessel gets cut or broken, which is really important because if your blood doesn't clot, it's just going to keep bleeding and bleeding and bleeding and you'll eventually lose all your blood. So God created with these platelets that help to kind of thicken up and clot, which prevents the blood from, any more blood from leaving. Now you'll notice there's still a big section of blood we haven't talked about, and that's your plasma. This is mostly water. It's kind of a yellowish color. If you've ever skinned your knee or something, you might have seen like this yellowish fluid that comes out to the surface. That's your plasma, okay? It helps to transport various substances through the circulatory system. It's also connected to your lymphatic system, which you'll find out in the next lesson, okay? So that's what's in your blood. How does your blood flow? So your body, your heart has a series of valves that prevent blood from going backwards. So in other words, as it enters your body, there is 2 valves here that will close it off and they'll prevent any of the blood escaping back into these veins. So the valves are really important to keep things in place. So the blood pumps in and then the valve goes in place so that nothing can push up against it. Okay, so it opens like this, lets blood in and then closes and the blood can't go out. So it's only got one direction to flow, which is really important because we want our blood to flow in the right direction and not the wrong direction, okay? So the blood first comes in, it's deoxygenated, which means it has carbon dioxide and not oxygen, and the first place it will go is to your right atrium. Once it's in your right atrium, it will get pushed through this valve into your right ventricle, okay? Your right ventricle then, so let's put these notes up here for a sec, hold on. Blood returning from the body enters the right atrium and then the right ventricle. When the right ventricle contracts, okay, remember squeezes, okay, the blood moves into the pulmonary arteries and into the lungs, okay? So you'll notice from here, it can only go up here. Notice there's another valve here. The blood comes up here and goes out through these tubes up here. These tubes here are called your pulmonary arteries. Remember, arteries carry blood away. So these are carrying blood away from the heart and to your lungs, okay? So they connect to your lungs. And when they do, remember those capillaries we saw that were attached to the alveoli? That's where this blood is going. It's going to those alveoli where it can do the exchange, get rid of the carbon dioxide, and then it takes in the oxygen to the blood. Okay, so once these are connected to the lungs, they do that exchange, then the oxygenated blood, our blood now has oxygen from the lungs, it travels back via these little guys. They are called your pulmonary veins. Now, you'll notice the pulmonary veins, it's kind of hard to see here, but they actually go into your left atrium. So let's put that up. Come on. Okay, blood returns from the lungs through the pulmonary veins and enters the left atrium. Blood then enters the left ventricle. Again, there's valves in place to prevent it from going the wrong direction. And when this contracts, it rushes into the aorta, okay? The aorta is this guy right here. Remember this tube up here? It is a big artery. And from there, you'll see it's got some smaller branching off. Those will then send the blood all over your body, upwards, downwards, to your appendages, everywhere your blood needs oxygen, okay? And then the process starts all over again. And at the capillaries, the oxygen and blood get exchanged again, and then the veins take the blood back to your heart, okay? So there's 2 types of circulation that we look at when we talk about the circulatory system. And my battery seems to be dying. Okay, The pulmonary circulation carries blood to and from the lungs. So anywhere that we're talking about the blood going out of the pulmonary arteries and into the pulmonary veins, that's called pulmonary circulation. Anytime we talk about the blood moving away from the heart or towards the heart via the vena cava and the aorta, that's systemic circulation, okay? So depending on what you're talking about, those are the two types, okay? Then you'll notice in your book you have a picture of a heart, okay? I want to walk you through what you need to put in those pictures, okay? There we go, the blood pathway. Okay, ignore the re-enters the heart part. This may go a little goofy here. All right, so the first two are your superior and inferior vena cava. Ignore this stuff on the left for now, okay? So right here on your little heart picture, it looks just like my guy over here, okay? Number 1 is up here and number 2 is down here, okay? This is your inferior vena cava and your superior vena cava. This is the first stop. This is the way the blood first gets into your heart. Then remember, it goes to your right atrium and then your right ventricle, which is what's going to pop up here next. Right atrium, right ventricle. Then it's going to go to your pulmonary artery, which is on this side over here, number 5, okay? From your pulmonary artery, it's going to go to your lungs, okay? And then it's going to re-enter your heart, come through the pulmonary vein to your left atrium and then your left ventricle, and then out your aorta, which is the one at the very top, okay? So we're going to put this guy up on our little section here, okay? We're just going to place him on top for right now. It's a little bit to the left is how that works, okay? It's actually behind your lungs, so technically this one would, because this one's the top, so it would look more like that, okay? All right, so you have in your homework, there's one more thing I want to talk to you about, so don't go yet. You have in your homework this packet that I sent home. It's going to just essentially walk you through this whole pathway. This is your homework for today. You're going to read through this packet, okay? There's some instructions on what colors to use, and then you're going to color and label this worksheet for me. This is what you're going to scan and send back to me, showing that you know the path that the blood takes, okay? And then we will talk about this some more on Zoom, but this is what I want you to do for homework. All right, sorry. There we go. Picture of the heart again. The circulatory system works together with the other systems. A couple things you need to know are the pulse. This is your slight change in blood pressure in an artery when the heart beats. So if you put your fingers on your wrist or on your neck, if you can find the right place, you'll feel the blood actually pumping through your arteries and veins, okay? And if you count it out in like a 10-second time frame and then times it by 6, that will give you your pulse or your beats per minute, okay? Your blood pressure is simply the pressure of the circulating blood against the walls of the arteries. If you want to try this, you can go ahead and try and feel your pulse, maybe count how many times it beats in 10 seconds, then go do like 50 jumping jacks or something like that and come back and feel the difference in the blood pressure, because your blood is going to be pumping a lot harder and faster because it wants to get that oxygen into your body. So cardiovascular system, or the way that our book calls it is the circulatory system, which I like better, even though I'm used to saying cardiovascular. But the circulatory system tells us that things are circulating, which is the whole point of this system. So call me, text me, email me any questions you have, and I will see you guys on our Zoom call tomorrow. Bye.